The articles in question are as follows. Article 4111, it currently states, the state recognizes the family as the natural, primary and fundamental unit group of society and as a moral institution possessing inalienable and imprescriptible rights, antecedent and superior to all positive law. Hard really to get your head around it even as it is. Anyway, the proposal is to change it to the following. The state recognizes the family, and this is the bit that's added, whether founded on marriage or on other durable relationships, as the natural, primary and fundamental unit group of society and as a moral institution possessing inalienable and imprescriptible rights, antecedent and superior to all positive law. That's the first measure upon which you'll be asked to vote. The second one, Article 43131, it says at the moment, the state pledges itself to guard with special care the institution of marriage on which the family is founded and to protect it against attack. And they're going to delete one phrase in that, and it now goes, the state pledges itself to guard with special care the institution of marriage and to protect it against attack. In other words, it takes out on which the family is founded. So joining me is Fergus Finlay, columnist with the Irish Examiner, and Estelle Birdy, writer and spokesperson for the Silent Protest Advocacy Group. Good morning and welcome to you both. Good morning.
Hey, thanks, Pat.
You're voting yes.
I am. I can't wait, actually. I think we've been 50 years waiting for the first of these changes, the woman in the home change. When it was put in, it was objectionable. It's always been objectionable. It's sexist, outdated, patronizing, condescending language. It's not a coincidence that, it was drafted by the then Archbishop of Dublin, or certainly had the enthusiastic support of the then Archbishop of Dublin, and it has made a statement about women throughout all those years that has never been acceptable. And I'm delighted to see it go. Absolutely delighted to see it go. Can't wait to vote for that one.
And what about you, Estelle?
Well, I fundamentally, and the silenced protest fundamentally disagrees with Fergus. We don't find, and nobody has been able to explain to us exactly what is so objectionable about something that recognises the value to society of women's work in the home.
And that particular article, the state shall therefore endeavour to ensure that mothers shall not be obliged by economic necessity to engage in labour to the neglect of their duties.
Well, that's the second part. The first part of 41.2 recognises the value to society of women's work in the home. And we don't find, as feminists and women's rights activists, we don't find that there's anything objectionable about recognising that. We think it's important.
You're saying it's reality that so much of this work that is required, the caring work, is actually done by women?
It's actually done by women, and we have no problem with that being recognised. And in fact, Susan Denham, former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Susan Denham, in 2001 in the Synod case, explicitly said that it doesn't, 41.2 doesn't limit women at all, doesn't limit their roles to the home, and in fact it's actually an acknowledgement and a recognition of the value to society of that work in the home. The second part of 41.2 is the most crucial part, because all the yes side, the de facto campaign arm of the government, the National Women's...
I'm not an arm of the government.
Oh, not you, Fergus. Not you, Fergus. I would never say that about you, Fergus. No, the National Women's Council are acting as the de facto
also an independent body.
When they're getting 90% of their funding funneled through the department of the minister, who has said, before the campaign actually got started, who has said that progressive organisations need to answer to him, presumably, but they need to explain themselves if they don't support a yes campaign. And a couple of days later, the National Women's Council, that receives 90% of its funding from the government, from public funds, comes out with a very belligerent yes campaign, founded on what can only be kindly described, in many cases, what they're saying, on misinformation. So the second part is the most important part to women, because we can talk about symbolism, we can use misinformation, we can link it to things that it's not linked to at all, like the marriage bar, or most egregiously to the awful cases of Joanne Hayes and Anne Lovett. But the fact is that they're relying on this symbolism. Symbolism for women doesn't put money in pockets or food in bellies. And what 41.22 does actually do is state that the state will endeavour to ensure that women will not be forced out of the home into the general labour market if they choose not to. This
is that not essentially, by saying women, denying that there are male carers too?
No, it's not. It's not, and that has been shown.
It is.
No, it has actually been shown in court cases. I'm trying to fail to remember the name of the judge who actually said that this protection does extend to men. However, that excuse for removing this protection for mothers.
It does specifically say mothers.
It does specifically say mothers.
It does.
And mothers specifically, not fathers, mothers suffer the pregnancy penalty throughout their lives. So we're back to the symbolism thing. Women care about their pensions. Women care about having money to feed themselves. They have the choice to go out, protected by Article 45. They can go out. Men and women equally are entitled to earn a livelihood.
Well, first of all, Estelle, I really don't know why it's necessary to attack independent bodies like the National Women's Council, who have fought for the rights of women for generations under different names.
I'm not attacking them. I'm stating facts.
I think you are attacking them, and I think you're trying to undermine what is a really, really independent organisation. But let's not even bother with that. The language of this article has been objected to by women for years and years and years. I've never heard anybody supporting that language until somebody thought it might be a good idea eventually to change it. You quoted Susan Denham in the Senate case. Mm-hmm. I've read the entire Senate judgment. I've read what Adrian Hardiman said. I've read what the Chief Justice said. I've read what Susan Denham said in that case. I don't know if you're familiar with the whole case. It is the single most egregious attack on people with disability in the history of the state, that judgment. And Susan Denham, although she made a passing reference to women in the home in the course of a lengthy judgment, was part of that judgment. And I have no respect whatsoever for the people who issued that judgment, because it set the cause of people with disability back for generations. But much more to the point, this is language that patronizes women, that condescends to women, particularly, actually, that condescends to women who have spent their lives caring. In a piece I wrote recently, with my wife's permission, I quoted her as an example of somebody who gave up a career 50 years ago because of the arrival of disability in our house, and has been a battler, a carer, an advocate for that entire 50 years, and now finds herself regarded by the state primarily because of that kind of language, not that specific clause, but that kind of language. She now finds herself regarded by the state as a dependent on my social welfare. Right? She has no rights whatsoever. She's given a lifetime's work and service to the state, will never have a right to a pension for any of that, because she shouldn't have been forced, because she couldn't neglect her duties outside the home. I think we really need to take a break from this kind of stuff. It's been years and years and years that people have argued that.
Can you just clarify what you mean by taking a break from this kind of stuff? Now, your wife, I completely sympathise with
this kind of patronising language in our Constitution.
I completely
Give us a break from this kind of patronising, condescending language.
Right, I get that, but if it was the case that there was a pressing need to change the Constitution, and we should not change the Constitution unless there's a pressing need, and we can afford it. So you're conflating there. I do know the judgment in the Senate case, and I completely agree. I completely agree with you on the disability and the rights that it basically undermined, that the entire case. Nevertheless, that section of Susan Denham's judgment, I don't think that we can argue with the Chief Justice. There is another example of a woman who has not been limited in any way. She was the Chief Justice. You worked yourself on the campaign. We were just chatting about it, that you worked on Mary Robinson's campaign. We've had 2 female presidents. the people who are advocating for it, Orla O'Connor from the NWCI, was named in 2018 by Time magazine as one of the 100 world's most influential people. Ivana Bacik, head of your own party, is now head of the oldest party in the state. She's a TD,
all right,
former
you're saying
senator.
that women have been doing rather well.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Now, back to your wife, who's I have a lot of sympathy for. I totally agree.
She doesn't need sympathy.
But
she doesn't need sympathy.
But she does need sympathy because of the economic penalty that she has suffered. She absolutely does. However, there we have in the Constitution a fantastic protection for women that has not been exerted. And several judges and legal experts have said...
Article 4121, in particular, the state recognises that by her life within the home, woman gives to the state a support without which the common good cannot be achieved.
We're talking about 41.22.
Yeah, but no, I'm just saying that actually is a statement of kind of thanks very much for your trouble. You're doing the job that we should be doing. That's really what that particular
if you look at the website,
is saying.
And I'm not...
And what it's been replaced with is a weakening of that. It will not support carers. We would be in the silence protest, and any woman worth her salt would be very much in favour of adding in fathers, of course, give them duties as well, and carers generally. Carers are not mothers. Mothers are carers, but they are not the same. They are not the same thing. So taking away mothers...
but what it replaces it with, the state recognises the provision of care by members of a family to one another by reason of the bonds that exist among them gives to society a support without which the common good cannot be achieved, and shall strive to support such a provision. All it does there, it would appear, is to replace woman with a broader cohort of people.
Yes, and there should be no problem adding back in carers. But that's not what we're doing. We're being called to remove mothers and women.
The Carers Association, for example, who support this amendment, have estimated that the value of care in economic terms, in social terms, in Ireland is immeasurable. The reward for care is negligible. Now, I'm going to go a little off-piste here. I don't think this amendment goes far enough. I really, really welcome the assessment or the statement.
On that we agree.
I really welcome the statement that care needs to be valued. I want it ultimately to be accompanied by the rights of carers, ultimately. But I know, Pat, and forgive me for kind of throwing me age around, I mean, several years ago I campaigned to have the rights of children put into the Constitution, and it was argued at the time by one set of people that if you gave children rights to be taken away parents' rights. It was argued by another set of people that the rights weren't strong enough. I knew they weren't strong enough at the time. But look what has happened since. What's happened since is the whole culture has changed. The legal culture, the political culture, the administrative culture. The idea that children's rights and needs have to be placed paramount in policy considerations has been embedded now, as a result of it. Constitutional change that was seen as a bit weak and watery. That's what happens when you change the Constitution. Little by little you begin to change the culture, and it's long past time in Ireland that we change the culture around care. Nothing will happen overnight when we adopt this referendum, as I hope we do, but over time it will make a huge difference.
So the final words to you, Estelle, about what difference this would make if it's passed. Because, mothers, women are included in that generality.
Yeah, but mothers are not, they're not, and they're not included. What we're talking about is a complete excision of the words woman and mothers, and a removal of that quite strong protection, which, Senator Michael McDougall has told us that it is a very strong protection for women. Mothers need that protection. Yes, absolutely add in something about carers with a robust guarantee to financially support carers. That is not what's happening. Women did not ask for this. No woman said to Roderick O'Gorman, do you know what, you've got 20 million knocking around. Do you know what is really busting our ovaries? The aged and outdated language in the Constitution.
People have been saying this for years and years and years. I mean,
perhaps you've been saying it, Fergus.
You say it isn't urgent. You say
It isn't urgent.
It's taken us a half a century to get here. It's taken us a half a century, and in the course of that half century, the tone and demeanour and language of our Constitution has been oppressive to women. And at the centre of that, at the core
I'm telling
of
you,
that
as a
tone
feminist and a woman, that it is not oppressive.
I can't
Not
claim
oppressive enough.
I have been a feminist all my life, Estelle. I don't need a lecture on feminism.
All right.
A male feminist.
I recommend that people read in advance of going into the polling booth the care and the family amendments in great detail before they make up their minds. But for the moment, and we will have more discussions on this before the 8th of March, Fergus Finlay, columnist with the Irish Examiner, Estelle Birdy, writer and spokesperson for the silent protest. Thank you very much both for joining us.